Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Sales Hacker webinar. I'm really excited for today's topic. We've got a lot of great content that we're going to get through, and even better panelists to join us today and bless us with their knowledge and expertise on a topic that I think is extremely important, especially as sellers, sales leaders. I think it's going to be good, and we're going to walk away with a lot of great takeaways and things you can put into your day-to-day process right away. What we're speaking to today are the surefire strategies for personalized prospecting on LinkedIn. Okay, if you're not currently using LinkedIn heavily for prospecting as an SDR, AE, sales managers, leadership, whatever it is, I'm going to say you probably should. It's very lucrative. It should be part of your process. So today we're going to dive into that and really pull out some of the top strategies that these leaders have used in their process to help you guys, so you can kind of go back and get plugging away and smashing your quotas out of the water, because that's what we all want to do. I would like to introduce our panelists, Miranda Fisher, Samantha McKenna, Jeff Swan, and Daniel Disney. Thank you all, four of you, for joining us today. Welcome to a Sales Hack webinar.
Thanks, Mikey.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to learn from you guys. I know you know the social selling world inside and out, so excited to dive into it. But before we go into it, I do like to get a bit more background on each one of you, so we can get a bit more acquainted with the audience. So, Jeff, I'll throw it over to you to kick it off. Just give us a bit more background on yourself, who you are, and so we can get a bit more acquainted with you. You might be on mute there, Jeff.
First one. Icebreaker, that's what it was. I'm Jeff. I'm the founder and head coach at Outbound SOS. I coach sellers, sales leaders, and founders, like sales-focused founders, how to build pipeline at will with what I call conversational prospecting. Basically come in from a background of about 17 years running sales, marketing, sales development for high-growth companies. And I've seen most that you can put in front of me, and I've been able to bend the market to my will. So I look forward to helping you folks today just understand LinkedIn prospecting a little bit better.
Awesome. Sweet, Jeff. Well, really excited to have you. Thanks for joining us, and looking forward to hearing what you have to say on what we're speaking to. Great. I will throw it over to Miranda. Miranda, just give us a bit of background on yourself.
Yeah, my name's Miranda Fisher. I work at Aircall as the BDR SDR manager, so seeing both the inbound and outbound teams here at Aircall. About a team of 10. I actually started my career here almost 4 years ago as a BDR myself. So really learned from the get-go and seen the company grow so much. Got the opportunity to come back after being an AE to manage the team. So it's been really exciting to see how they've been flourishing and helping them use their knowledge from where they were before to continue and grow into who they are as salespeople today.
Great. Well, thank you, Miranda. I appreciate you joining us. I'm excited to hear how you've utilized this process from a BDR all the way to where you're at now. So this is good. This is going to be good. I'll throw it over to Samantha. Samantha, just give us some background on yourself.
Hey, you guys. So I'm Sam McKenna. I'm the CEO of #SamSales. I have been in enterprise sales for about 15 years. I've broken over 13 sales records, probably all of which were done via social selling and everything that we did on LinkedIn and LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I spent some time as a leader at LinkedIn running net new enterprise sales for LinkedIn Sales Navigator as well. And I'm proud to have them as a client and also serve as a brand ambassador for them. And then we do everything under the sun around LinkedIn and personalization. If you've heard Show Me You Know Me before and you can read it, it came from yours truly. And we're all about social selling and how you can connect the dots through really smart tactics.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, Sam. I'm excited because I know you are an expert in this piece. So I'm really excited to learn from you too. And last but not least, Daniel, just give us a bit of background on yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Daniel Disney. I am not related to Walt Disney before anyone asks that in the Q&A. I know it's going to happen. I am a LinkedIn trainer and author. I've written 2 books, Ultimate LinkedIn Sales Guide and the £1 Million LinkedIn Message. I've spent my entire working life in sales and the last 7 to 8 years living social selling. So yeah, my passion, just like everyone here, is helping other salespeople and sales teams learn how to leverage LinkedIn and Sales Navigator to its full potential, because it's such a powerful tool. And we were just discussing before we went live, so many people just aren't even scratching the surface. So hopefully today we'll get to help everyone who's here watching.
Perfect. And that's the goal, right? We want to just get people on board with the social selling sphere, because like you just mentioned, it seems that there are quite a few out there that aren't utilizing to its fullest, right? So again, thank you all so much for joining us. Really excited to dive into it, and everybody on the call, you're going to love what we're talking through here today. Again, any questions in the Q&A, and let's get it going. Let's dive into it. First of all, I want to run a couple polls just to get a pulse in the audience. Who's with us, where they fit within their organization, and then a bit more info on what your biggest challenges have been with social selling. So first off, I'm going to start the first poll and launch it here. So the first poll, we just want to know what your role is. So who's with us today? Are you an SDR? Are you an E, team lead, director plus, founder? Yeah, just give us. We'll give it about a 30 seconds to a minute here as everybody fills in. It's looking like we're have a big spew across the whole board, which is fantastic. So that's great, because I know we have multiple different perspectives on social selling for different personas and different titles. So fantastic. We are almost there. Okay. I am going to end the poll here and share the results so everyone can see. So you can see we have quite a good spew across the board, right? So I love seeing that. We're going to dive into all of these different perspectives on social selling that can fit within different personas and titles. So I'm glad to see that we have a good mix here joining us today. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and then I'm going to share one more poll just so we can get a pulse on your guys' biggest challenge with social selling. I know what mine is, and I'm sure everyone has their little pieces that is the toughest part about it. But let's just see what you guys think here. I'm going to launch it out. What's your biggest challenge in social selling? Is it consistency? Is it creative ideas? Is it structure? Or is it messaging? I know there might be some more that we missed here, but those were the kind of the top of mind that popped up. I'll give that another 30 seconds to load up. I'm going to say what mine is consistency. That's been the toughest part for me. I feel like on the side, I've always have tons of stuff I'm thinking about on the weekends or after work that I'm writing in my notes and stuff like that. But then something gets caught up, and then next thing you know, I forget or whatever it is. So that's my biggest one. And it looks like some other people share the same issue as I do. Okay, I'll end this guy and share the results. And again, it's across the board. Messaging being the biggest. Do any of the panelists, do any of you have any thoughts on that, or what you thought would be kind of the biggest challenge?
I thought consistency, because I think like when it comes to LinkedIn, there's some people that are like, I love LinkedIn. I'm going to post everything, every experience I've ever had ever on my LinkedIn. And then there's people that are like director of sales, and that's all you can find on them. Yeah. I'm surprised consistency doesn't have more.
Yeah. Well, from what I see, the majority of the people that I coach, messaging is definitely a real pain point for a lot of people. Just knowing what to say and knowing when to say it. I find that a lot of people might have that good first message and then just get stuck on the reply. Like, I don't know how to, they replied and I don't know what to do. And so it's not just about having a great value prop, but it's about having, we're on LinkedIn, we're not emailing and we're not cold calling. Like, this is a conversation you're having. So a lot of people get stuck on how to actually do that whole conversation tree.
I think you're so right. Like even when we reach out and connect with someone, people always get confused. What am I supposed to say in the connection request? And then what do I say afterwards? One of the tactics we always say is, send your connection request out. We can talk about the messaging there. But if you've asked for something and then they connect with you and they don't reply, everyone's like, what do I do now? Well, our guidance is always to say, just thanks for connecting, looking forward to staying in touch. And I think what's kind of interesting when you do it the first time is that when someone accepts your connection request and then they see your message pop up in their message box, instinctively they kind of groan because they're like, oh, they're going to try and pitch me or send me a Calendly or something like that. So then when they see that, thanks for connecting, look forward to staying in touch, they're going to be like, well, that was weird. They didn't pitch me. And you'll be like, just you wait. I mean, great to stay in touch. But it's just a good way to build that messaging in, right? And show that you're not just after the sale, but you're here to start a relationship with them.
We've also had the new introductions of audio voice notes and video messaging on LinkedIn, which has just taken messaging to a whole new place. And I mean, some months I won't get any audio or video messages from salespeople. I think it is just the minutest minority that are actually leveraging it, and that's a huge potential. So I'm not too surprised to see messaging being a high priority. And I think it shows how aware salespeople are that it is such an important part of the process. But as was said in the chat by Jenny Lynn, all of the above. I think a lot of salespeople and sales teams probably need a little bit of everything.
Agreed. Very much so agreed. And then back to what Sam said, Cynthia in the chat, connect and pitch is the kiss of death.
The worst.
Pitch slap.
Pitch slap.
Awesome. Okay, guys. Well, I'll stop sharing here, and we can kind of get grooving along here. Okay. Awesome. We do have a few questions popping up in the Q&A. I will get to those as we kind of start going through the conversation, just so everybody that did ask a question knows that we will get to them. But we do want to start getting through some of the content here. So, okay. I want to hear from all of you guys. We're going to start it off like this, right? There's so many different ways of using LinkedIn to prospect, especially when you're focusing on specific personas, specific industries, verticals, whatever that looks like. But there are best practices to how you guys would go about it. I would love to hear from each of you, some of the things that you're telling your teams, your clients, the people you work with. What are some of the best practices, the basics, the main core pieces that you utilize when prospecting on LinkedIn, messaging, all like we just spoke about, consistency, all of that. I'm going to throw it over to you, Miranda, to kind of kick it all off. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that there's two big ways you can go about it. There's leads and then there's accounts. So it depends, again, like where you're working out of. My company personally works off of accounts, but we still look at leads as a way for us to dive deeper. So always targeting those cities that are most prosperous for your industry. So for us, it's really big cities, using industries to target those key verticals. But when we're looking at leads, I think really what's most important is to look at that focus area, the spotlights. So leads that follow your company is a huge one that I always push for my team. So looking at the function that they work within, the how high up we need them. So do we need them to be a director? And if they already follow us, great, they already know who we are, so then we can push a little bit further. And then even people that have been mentioned or have posted in the past 30 days on LinkedIn are big ones that I think everyone should be following.
Cool. No, I love that. So you're saying that if you get a lead list and you go search them on LinkedIn and they're following your company, that's a really good place to start?
100%. They already have some familiarity with who your company is. So now you just need to have that closer conversation with that individual, get them more familiar, and then get them one step closer to booking that demo.
Totally. And there's there's obviously a good chance that they've kind of gone through the website, interacted with Aircall in some way, shape, or form. So seeing them on another channel, it's like, oh, maybe we should dive deeper to this, right?
Yeah.
Love that. Awesome. Jeff, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I'd like to add that LinkedIn prospecting is really about a mindset. So it's instead of thinking about I just say kill the pitch. So don't think about pitching on social media. Think about engaging in a conversation with somebody. So really go for a reply, not a meeting, and go for reply to the reply to the reply, and then lead that conversation. Because if you start with a thought-provoking message, whether it's a statement or a question, and it provokes a thought around the solution or the problems that your solution solves for, then their challenges come up, they surface throughout a genuine conversation. You don't have to force it in order to make it happen. So like I said, it's really think about the mindset of, my goal here is to have a great conversation with somebody that I think I can help. And when you have that mindset, your natural behaviors become stronger and they lead you to where you want to go, as opposed to just trying to get that pitch out as soon as possible and listening for it. So that's pretty much the number one thing that makes me successful in prospecting, makes my students do as well.
Love that. That's great. Sam, I would love to hear your thoughts and kind of your best practices on what you tell your teams and the people you work with.
I think the mindset is right, but I think it's, if we shift from thinking about prospecting to booking meetings, and thinking about instead just creating a conversation, starting to engage and sharing our thought leadership, that's where we're going to set ourselves apart. And I think for a lot of people, the social selling in general can become overwhelming. So just think of two things that you can do that are really easy. Number one, if you are terrified about posting your own content and you're just not there yet, but you're like, I still want to engage, look for a couple of thought leaders. Look for us. Look for people like the Morgan Ingrams of the world, the Amy Volases of the world, people like that who post a lot. Look for those individuals who sell to the same people that you do, but not in a competing way. And then go and contribute to the conversation, right? They'll start to see your name on there, not only as the thought leader, but then everybody else who comments on there. I think the second thing, if you have Sales Navigator, A, if you don't, run and go get it. B, if you do, I think the power of it is there's so much power to what you can do from a prospecting perspective, but sometimes we're really bad at communicating the value. We, being LinkedIn, is bad at communicating the value of it. So a really quick thing you can do, pop open to Navigator, go to your advanced search filters, and look for anybody that has previously worked for some of your best clients and currently works in your book of business. In like 10 minutes, you'll find people who used to work for people who are, case studies of yours on your customer advisory board, have client quotes, et cetera, and now work in your book of business and are probably connected to executives at your company. Prospecting doesn't have to be hard. We don't have to smile and dial 100 times a day or send 17,000 outreach campaigns out. Do these smart tactics, get your visibility out, and get the leads that are warmer. I mean, you'll be crushing your quota in no time.
Sam, I love that. And what you said too of, go and you might be at a point where you're not too confident to share your content out there or your thoughts or your opinions, but going and actually following those people that are in the same realm, that are sharing content similar to what you want to do in the future, not only will give you more confidence because you'll see how they're doing it and how they're just more putting content out there. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be tip-top shape, right? Some are just, let's just throw it out there. So it'll give you a bit more confidence. It'll give you, I think, a bit more ideas on where to even start and how to kind of continue. And then ultimately, the more they see you, the more you start showing up in their networks. And then also by contributing to and throwing stuff out there, you're building that rapport with your potential prospects instead of just saying, hey, this is what I want to sell you.
Yeah. Also too, like for those of you thinking about getting your content out there, I just took a leap of faith and did it. Actually, the first Sam Sales I ever posted, got Sales Hacker to reach out and said, do you want to write for us? And I was like, oh my God, what? But just get out there. I think my first few posts had like a like and a comment. Have at it, right? Like you'll build an audience. Just go out there and share your thought leadership.
Totally. Oh, I've been the first couple months of when I first started, I was getting not even a like. It's just the consistency, right? So that's good. Thanks, Sam. I love that. Daniel, love to hear your thoughts on kind of your best practices and what you tell your teams and so on.
Yeah, everyone's been dropping some amazing stuff. For me, recently, it's the 3 Ps, profile, personalization, and personal brands. I'll quick tip on each of those. Profile, make it more about your customers, less about you. They don't really need to know about all your mega achievements, but more about what you can do for them and how you can help them. So make your profile more customer focused. Personalization, same tip, make your messages more about them. You know, if you want to start a conversation, tell them something that you've observed or something you've seen them share, like, engage on, something you notice in their profile, their activity, but don't make your message about you and what you're trying to sell, but more about them. And like we were sort of talking about, making it more of a conversation, less of a pitch. And then with personal brands, you want to build your name up so that people want to read your messages, they want to reply. And that comes down to consistency. And the biggest tip I can give for that is book time in 15 minutes to 30 minutes at least every day. Do it for the next 3-6 months, have it as a recurring meeting in your calendar, and have that time to do what everyone's been saying. Come onto LinkedIn, engage with key people in your industry, get your name out there, start sharing a bit of content. Don't worry about early engagement, but that consistency will start to make your name visible. And that's going to help your prospects and future customers get to know you. And similar to what Sam was saying, just little things like that can have a huge impact on your pipeline and quota.
Yeah.
I promise I'll shut up in a second, but you guys can all talk about this too, right? I just posted the other day thinking, don't get so fixated on the likes and the comments you guys get. Look at the engagement. You know, I know I'm in this boat. I'm sure the three of you have been in it, Mike, probably you as well, where people are like, hey, I loved your content, you know, for the last 2 years. And I'm like, who are you? I've never seen them like, I've never seen them comment, right? So your stuff impacts people. They're not necessarily engaging, but they are reading.
Yeah, the views are really important there, right? Because just like you, Sam, I've had people reach out to me and just say, hey, your content's amazing. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there having that, like, you know, anxiety moment. Oh my God, it only got like 10 likes. People don't like my stuff. But I can tell you with utmost confidence that when you are consistently posting, it doesn't matter if it's great content or good content, as long as it speaks to your buyer, then they're going to notice. And surprisingly, like, a lot of times I sell to CEOs, and those aren't the people that are consuming my content or engaging or liking or sharing or saying, man, this was a great blog post or whatever. The CEOs are the ones that are saying exactly what Sam says. They're sending me a private message and saying, Jeff, that video was awesome. You know?
A quick insight, actually, just while we're talking about engagement, you know, LinkedIn polls, personal stories, they can go viral. You can get tons of likes and comments, but usually they don't always translate into inquiries or even conversations. I mean, I've been sharing some new batches of videos over the last couple of weeks, and the amount of inquiries I've got from them, they're getting the lowest types of engagement, the lowest views, the lowest comments and likes, but they're translating into opportunities because there's a lot more value. There's that sort of video in-person type of experience. And so I agree with everyone here. Don't be too fixated on the likes, the comments. Just go out there to give value. Try and provide value to your target customers. Be consistent with it. Have fun with it. And if you keep at it, it will start to work out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And again, back to what all of you guys have been saying is, the more you put out there, the more value you bring, the more you become an expert in your space, which then attracts those potential prospects, right, to come and reach out directly. Hey, let's have a chat, right? Especially on LinkedIn, where I feel like a lot of people are much more active. And when you see the 150 emails in your inbox and you just kind of rip through them, you don't want to, unless it's very important. I feel like you can get more eyeballs, you know, potentially through LinkedIn if you're kind of putting out valuable content there. So that's just my two thoughts. But no, I love everything you guys are saying there. To add on to that, I want to kind of just get an idea from all of you guys, or just a thought outside of putting out content to kind of build awareness and stuff like that. Say you have you get a lead list, you have an event or something comes in, and you have a bunch of people, and kind of, Miranda, what you said, going and figuring out who actually has interacted with Aircall, who follows them in the first place. What is the process to that, or how do you tell your reps or your teams how to initially engage with those leads and those people on LinkedIn, right? A lot of people just say connect, right? Which is, in my opinion, the worst thing you can possibly do. But but there's also the follow. There's also adding engaging in their content. What kind of processes do you guys recommend? And then how do you continue that to then ultimately get the conversation going? What do you think is the best process there, Miranda? I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think there's an art to like the madness of LinkedIn overall. As I was kind of mentioning earlier, you're gonna find people that sometimes love just posting about everything on LinkedIn and love covering their resume, like making it beautiful, interactive, have a beautiful bio. And then there's some people that again just have nothing on their LinkedIn whatsoever, and it's hard for you to kind of gauge how that conversation might go. So for my team, I think something that's really important that they do is actually follow them on LinkedIn Sales Nav. And then if they do see that consistent value of what they're posting, go ahead and send a connection request. And as Sam said, just like introducing yourself at the first point is always a big step in that. It's something that we do here is just call email. But once you start getting that lead to be a little bit warmer, the LinkedIn Connect is the next step to really solidify, hey, this is me and I'm trying to win your business. Please give me a shot.
Yeah. Awesome. Love that. I think that's great. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, thank you. I have a little stupid little acronym I created, FETCH. So I'd like to look at follow, engage, so like, comment, share, what have you. Track, if somebody says something like a key phrase that you look for in your triggers, that's your time to respond. And to use what Miranda, to piggyback on what you were saying, is the whole concept of creating a list of the people that you're following, right? Like use Sales Nav to actually create a specific list. And then if they're engaging, if there's somebody that you want to connect with, then actually connect with them, and then help. So the final thing is just, how can I help you progress in your day?
I'm disappointed. Nobody mean girls you. Stop trying to make fetch happen. Come on, audience. What are we doing here?
I was trying to figure out where fetch had come from. So thank you for bringing that
up. Thanks, Sam.
We got the important topics covered. No worries. I think that the thing that's interesting to me about leads too, right? Like what I think about leads, things that come to our webinars, I think about referrals and, referrals that we get as leads, obviously. I think everything for us always goes back to show me, you know me. So, if somebody, let's say, connected Miranda and I and said, Sam, like Miranda was talking about some things that she could use help with. We'd love, I wanted to connect you guys. What I think we're quick to do is just respond to get the meeting. We're so fast to do that, right? And so on our other side, urgent bird gets the worm. Like we're all about urgency, like move, right? Respond to those inbound leads. But just take 2 seconds and pop over to their LinkedIn profile. Show that person that you know them. Find out where they worked before, who else they're connected to, right? And if I can respond to Miranda and say, great to meet you, thanks, Bill, whatever. I see you're connected to these 2 other people and you worked previously, I guess not because you started at AirCall, but you previously worked, let's just pretend, for one of our existing clients. I've now upped my credibility tenfold just by doing that. And I think the same thing goes for whatever piece of collateral is that you're referencing. So somebody swung by a virtual booth, came to a webinar, asked questions, voted on polls. Think about it just for today, even saying like, hey, I see that you have a challenge with this. I see you mentioned this. I wanted to make sure your question got answered. How can I be of help? Here's a resource, right? Just that one little above and beyond thing that I think is so common for us really sets you apart as a rep, because most reps just don't do that. So it's easy to stand out, thinking about those leads, thinking about how to leverage the information we have, whether it's on LinkedIn or in our database, and then just being different in a good way.
Yeah, no, I love that. And again, what Cynthia said, it takes less than a minute to check someone's LinkedIn account, right? So, and just doing that small extra tweak that, like you said, majority of reps aren't doing, can really set you apart, like you mentioned. So, Daniel, I just get your thoughts before we move on.
Yeah, one thing that sort of tags along to what everyone else has been saying. Obviously, you're going to be targeting a decision maker. You've got your ideal customer profile, but let's say you're targeting AirCall. Miranda's your target decision maker. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. There are a lot of other people within AirCall that could be really valuable to that whole process, both from learning, from insights. Maybe Miranda doesn't post a lot, but there are loads of other people that do. And there is a lot of insight that you can gather by connecting, following, and researching the wider team. Maybe it's Miranda's wider team, but then it could be the wider company, other influential decision makers, maybe it's head of finance, the CEO. So really spread out within your target businesses to really get the strongest possible understanding. And as Sam said, little details that show you or show them that you know them make you stand out significantly from the majority of salespeople that are just copy paste sending templates that are 100% about them and nothing about the other person. It's just the easiest way to stand out. Just quickly, I've noticed Greg put a comment about what if you don't have Sales Navigator, and I think it's just worth mentioning. Sales Navigator, phenomenal tool, absolutely amazing, but there is so much you can do on LinkedIn before you invest in Sales Navigator, like building a personal brand, like sharing content, optimizing your profile, and sending messages directly to connections. So yeah, Sales Navigator is phenomenal, but there is definitely a lot you can do before you feel ready to invest in it.
I was going to chime in on your point about, following all the people around Miranda, right? Like we're not necessarily going to get the meeting with Miranda, but how can we follow the people around her? Again, just a beautiful part about Navigator that most people overlook, and you guys probably know this too, but the recommended leads. So if I pop over to Miranda's profile, right, I'm going to see recommended leads. It's basically the LinkedIn algorithm and Navigator that's saying these are the people that are most often searched for in a cluster, aka who's in a meeting with Miranda, right, that we might book. So follow those recommended leads, right? What if you're doing BDR training and then you see that Miranda's BDRs keep asking questions to the LinkedIn community? You're not connected to them, so you wouldn't see that. But by following them, you can be like, hey, it looks like there's a consistent thread. I wonder if we can offer a resource, like how to be helpful by leveraging that information. I'm just going to say one other thing, and then again, I'll be quiet. I thought this was fascinating. So going back to Daniel's point about your profile, right? How important this is. Like we don't put as much thought into what is reflected of us there, but it is so important. You find that a lot of our C-suite executives or our EVPs that we're trying to get in front of, they will say, literally, you can send me an email and you can be the one email out of 20 or 25 that I get in a day that actually stands out. Before I respond, I'm going to your LinkedIn profile and I'm going to see if the time with you will even be worth it for me. And so who do you know? Where have you worked? Are you really an expert? Is there a proper picture of you, or is it you chugging beer with your 17 groomsmen? I've seen it. So think about that. Like if you were to get your most drool-worthy lead and your ICP like wouldn't sleep the night before a meeting to look at your profile, does it represent yourself and what you'd expect, or does it need to be spruced up?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more about like there's so many different approaches that you can take. It's not always about again going after that one person. I've seen people even take a bottom up approach. So actually going after BDRs, getting connected with them, having a conversation like, hey, BDR to BDR, like let's talk about like what your day-to-day looks like, and then how can we support each other in this. And then they're going to tell their managers, their manager, if there's enough value between that conversation, is going to tell their manager, and that's an easy way to sneak that demo upwards.
Yeah.
And I think even counter to that, think about if you want to go high up, right? Instead of you want to go top down, I think it's really scary to do that, especially if you're a BDR or you're a junior AE. You're like, what the hell am I going to say to a CRO? Ask your VP of sales, what would resonate with you? Ask your CRO, how does this email resonate? And I think that's such an easy thing for us to do internally. We probably have the titles internally that we're targeting. So go to them and say, does this value resonate? Go to your clients and say, if I sent you an email, does this properly articulate why you love working with us, right? Great way to refine your messaging and kind of get to that so what too. So, and I think Miranda's point is excellent. Like go both angles, try all the routes.
I think there's two other points just on that one. So obviously, if you are, let's say you're selling to a CRO, there are two things. Number one, your own internal CRO should be active on LinkedIn, because CROs are going to network with other CROs, and there's a lot of influence that can bring. But equally, you could interview your CRO and create content relevant to the CRO you're targeting.
Yeah,
so there is loads of different things
Genius.
you can do, even when you're targeting at the top.
Yeah, those are fantastic points. I love that. That's a really good insight, because I know a lot of people don't do that, right? And that could even be scary within your org, right? They don't even want to go and talk to leadership and then have that interview. So I think I've personally done that in the past, and it's worked really, really, really well. So I love that point. Okay, we should probably move on. We have a few more things to get through. I know there's a lot of questions coming into the chat. A lot of them are geared towards messaging and kind of personalization. So I'm going to save that for our last kind of topic that we're going to talk to, because it all is geared around that. But before we get to that, I do want to touch on one important piece. So social listening alerts are very important, or can be very helpful. So I would love to hear from you guys. One, for those out there who don't know what they are, just kind of getting a bit of background on what those look like. And two, what's the significance? Why are they important? And what tools have you used to help, to help with this process? I'll start with Jeff.
Yeah, so social alerts actually started a long time ago, well before social selling even became a thing. I still remember being in the in a social media group in Vancouver when Hootsuite was just starting. And one of the things we learned back then that's still relevant now is that those tools like Hootsuite, Buffer, and any tool that you can use to kind of mass produce or send out and schedule your posts, their purpose is actually for listening. So it's listening to the audience and understanding what they're saying when they're out there in the in the wild or whatever. So it's really cool, and why I've stuck with Hootsuite since then is that I like to create several feeds. So some are people I'm following, specifically people I'm following. Maybe it's thought leaders in sales, and I just want a list of them. I also create feeds of hashtags or keywords, and again, those key phrases that I'm listening for. That when I see somebody say this key phrase that is specific to what I'm selling and my prospecting, I can respond right away with either a piece of content of my own, or to Sam's point, curated from another thought leader, or I can just engage in that conversation right there and share my opinion. Again, being helpful to the audience. So I find that social alerts are so vital to doing social selling right, that people get bogged down in like, okay, think of my sequence and where my social message fits into my sequence and all that stuff. But I mean, you can prospect all day by just having a really good set of feeds, right? You never have to message, and you never have to do anything except respond, retweet, reply, or what have you, depending on the social network. And you can tap your whole audience in one screen of a social feed on something like Hootsuite.
I think Jeff's just highlighted why alerts are important, and it's so that you can be quick to respond. If some signal or alert comes in, you can jump on it straight away. And it is that that the early bird catches the worm, that the first people to respond are more likely to win those opportunities.
There you go. Right on Sam's wall.
I think even think about the social listening that we can do on our own. Again, whether you have LinkedIn or Navigator. So if you guys didn't see a bunch of us post on LinkedIn the other day, there's a new bell feature. Everybody knows the bell feature. You can only access it on desktop right now, not the app. So don't go via the app because you'll be disappointed. But pop over to our profiles and you can click the bell to make sure that you're staying on top of the people that you're most concerned about. That could be thought leaders. That could be your top prospects. That could be even internal. If you work for a large company and you're looking for your way to network and kind of build your way up, start to get notifications of what your leadership is talking about. And I think on the flip side, even what you were just saying, Jeff, I think the listening for content, specific content. So maybe we are always looking for people who talk about sales enablement or standing up BDR organizations or executive branding on LinkedIn, whatever that is. In Navigator, you can do a search for that, listening for content keywords, right? And they can be as specific or as broad as you want. That information, again, if you know how to use these tools like we're telling you to do them, the leads are just going to become an inbound machine, not only for you to see who needs you, but then for you to be able to participate in the conversation. And I would say, again, this isn't, to me, it's not about booking meetings. I can't remember the last time that I said, like, can I have 15 to 20 minutes on your calendar? Oh my God. But it's just participating in the conversation. If you show that you understand the space and you understand the topic, you're going to get someone who will eventually say, I'd love to hear more about your perspective or maybe how you can help us, right? That conversation turns those leads into inbound versus you being like, please meet with me, right? And it's a totally different experience.
Sam, you just reminded me of the worst type of messaging. And it's one thing to say, oh, can I book some time? But the other one is, here's a link to my calendar. So
no,
don't do that.
Oh, those are the best.
The worst.
Gets even more so.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, like, all the love for Calendly and everybody that does that function, right? But I think there's a time and a place for it, right? And I always say it's the same, like, if I saw Daniel on the street and was like, hey, do you want to grab drinks sometime? I'd love to take you for a drink. And Daniel was like, okay, sure. And then I was like, here's my calendar for you to schedule that date with me. He'd be like, he'd use some choice words that I'm not going to say on our podcast, but like, why would we do that with our prospects, right? Like, if somebody is an inbound lead, we can suggest some times, we can have our Calendly in our signature block, but don't be lazy. Just say, tell me what works for you. I don't want you to work into my calendar. I'm going to work into yours because I want to be urgent and I want to book it as fast as I can.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
want to be a service. Oh, so go ahead.
No, it's
No.
totally fine. Yeah, I think the thing that me and my team did for the BDR side was really interesting was we actually took away their chili piper links. So they don't give those chili piper links during any of their outreach. I think they have it in their like signature, but that's an option for the individual to use. I think those links, I just don't like the way the links look when you're doing the outreach whatsoever. It feels very like, oh, click here because like I want you to see it. I can't type it out for you. And I think more and more these days, like we want the convenience and the understanding from the people that are reaching out to us. Like, okay, what is it and how does it help me? And if I want to learn more, how can I do that? But that all needs to be within the message. Don't take me elsewhere.
It actually makes you think of something when out there we got a lot of BDRs, a lot of AEs, a lot of people prospecting. How often do you see people actually like really want your demo? So when you're prospecting and they're like, oh my God, Daniel just prospected me, he offered me a demo. Like how often does it come up that people are super excited about it? Like just show on the chat, like just say yes or no.
Every day. I mean, people are beating down Daniel's doors for demos, so it's an unfair question.
Yeah. Well, like obviously the point like I'm trying to make here is that people aren't excited to enter your sales process. You are excited to have them enter your sales process. They are excited to solve a problem that has been keeping them up at night, gnawing at them while they're having family dinner, annoying the crap out of their spouse because they're not focusing. Okay, like these are the types of things they care about. And if it ends up being a demo, that's fantastic. But when you're prospecting, you're kind of at that top of the funnel. You're in awareness. Do I have a problem? Do I know there's a solution to the problem? And exploring, they're in that exploratory phase, even if they've thought about it before. So you got to think about it. You're not trying to close somebody in prospecting, and you're certainly not going to do that on LinkedIn. So let's again, we go back to the mindset, but realistically, it's those calendar links and all those things. Those are conversion tools that were created for marketers by marketers, and they're applied to sales. So let's make sure that when we use them, we're using them in the way sales can use them, and we're not trying to just assign a marketing tool to sales.
Love that.
Great point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and another point to just like the social alerts, how I've used them in the past too. It's not only for me in terms of specifically for prospecting, but there could be people that I've connected with or relationships that I've had, or even current customers that I'm working with, where something will come up on social that I'm not aware of any other way, and then it's a great way to build the relationship deeper because you could see, hey, I just did a speaking opportunity. Here's the recording. Go in and listen to the speaking opportunity, and then give your feedback or whatever, or a funding round, X, Y, Z, whatever it is, right? So I think there's many ways you can utilize the social alerts as well. But I think it's very important that we utilize as many channels, as many avenues as possible, right? So again, another one. If you're not doing it, you should probably start. Awesome. Okay, so we have a bunch of questions with only a handful of time left, but I do want to touch on one more topic that we want to get through that I'm sure we can loop in a lot of those questions into it. But I think the most important part of this is the whole process of, messaging, personalization strategies, and starting the conversations with the prospects. So we've touched on, how are we even getting to that point, the following, building your brand, getting them to come in. But now that we are there, how do we start the conversation? How do we, what does that look like? What does the personalization look like, at the different stages of that conversation? What does the messaging look like, and so on? Sam, I'll throw it over to you to kind of start that off.
I even think about, so let's look at discovery calls maybe. Like once we've actually gotten somebody, we've started a conversation with them, and then we're getting on this call. I think the discovery calls for people are one of the biggest misses, because we don't have a good framework. I mean, we do, but most people don't have a good framework of the perfect discovery call, or what do I do? How do I engage? I think one thing that's interesting just to keep in mind for anyone that might be on the phone from an enablement perspective, keep in mind that your younger generation, your millennials and your Gen Zs, one of the pieces of feedback we're getting is that they're having a hard time even figuring out how to talk to somebody on Zoom. What do I say? What's appropriate? What can I reference? Can I talk about this on their profile? Those conversation skills should be somewhere on your enablement list. The thing that I think with Show Me, You Know Me, and kind of pulling in some personalization is make sure you do your homework in advance of this call, whatever the engagement is. And I realize that sounds super obvious. I can't tell you how many reps are like, I'm super senior and I don't need to do that and I can just wing it. And I'm like, that's cool. What happens when you show up and you're like, tell me about you? And they're like, you tell me about me. What do you know about me first? Then you're dead in the water. I want to do some research. I want to make sure that I understand where that person's coming from, where they've worked before, where they live. Kiss of death for me. And Daniel will tell you if I was like, hey, thanks for making time. Where do you live? Daniel will be like, cool, it's on my LinkedIn profile. Thanks for looking it up. So show up just having some knowledge of what's going on in their space, who they are, where they've worked before, common connections. You don't necessarily need to have a whole narrative and a point of view on everything that you can do for them, but just show that you've done that homework, right? And start the conversation out. One quick thing, we teach about just looking for the check mark on Zoom, right? Like I want to engage right away. So as soon as I see that audio is connected, I'm happy, I'm excited. I'm like, hey, how's it going? Put a smile on your face. If nothing else, a prospect is talking to you. You have a first date. Be happy, for the love of God. But then say like, great to meet you. Like, hey, like I know you're in London. Like I was just there, like find a way to connect with that person and show that you've done your homework on them. Bring that personalization in.
And if your camera is off, turn it on.
Okay, so hey, and what do we do when our camera's on and we're on with one person? It's really awkward and their camera's not on. So our trick is always to say, hey, I can't see you just yet, but can you see me? And then you get like the fumble and they're like, oh, can you see me now? And you're like, yes, thanks. So it's just our tactic instead of being like, can you turn on your camera? I always get it. My impression's weird. Anyway.
I love that. That's great. Yeah, it's a great little nugget. Daniel, what are your thoughts on the personalization strategies, messaging, and so on? Once you have that connection and so on.
Yeah, I mean, personalization is key. Like I said, the more you make it about them, the better. And just to sort of piggyback on Sam's points, it's almost like there's an onion online of information, and you just peel back the layers, and the amount of research you do on a prospect should be dependent on their potential value. So if you've got a huge big enterprise account, then you're probably going to want to do a lot of research. But if it's a small transactional sale, you don't want to spend hours researching them if it's not going to be the same equal value of time. But there is so many places, a gold mine of information. You've got their LinkedIn profile, their LinkedIn activity feed, you've got their LinkedIn company page, their LinkedIn company page activity feed, other members of staff, their website, other social channels, podcast, YouTube, webinars. I mean, there is so much information out there. How much of that you look through will depend on the type of prospect it is. But as everyone has kind of said, doing some amount of research will instantly put you ahead of so many of your competitors. It takes a little bit of time. Maybe it's a minute, maybe it's a few minutes, maybe it's longer for bigger accounts. But that time is so well invested if you can then make your messaging about them. If you can mention something, as Sam's got on the wall, that shows them that you've made an effort, because salespeople aren't making an effort. And it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot.
If the thought has ever crossed your mind, my buyers aren't on LinkedIn, I can't do that. Daniel has given you every rebuttal to that. Like there's so much information out there. Get off your buns and go find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I feel like these days, a lot of what reps are reverting to is like, hey, I see you're the director of sales at yada yada. And that, I feel like it feels like you're beating a dead horse at that point. That line has been so used so many times as the first sentence in that email. I think it's just about going just a step beyond that, using their bio, using what experience they've put in, maybe a past experience, or even looking at some of the things that they follow on LinkedIn, just relating a little bit closer. And I'll even give you an example of what a rep did at my company, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. Someone wrote about liking rock band on their LinkedIn. So he challenged her to a rock band like face off, and he got the demo. But that's like what it is. It's about going that extra level to just be a human, have an actual conversation, make the person feel heard. Truly, LinkedIn is a place where people are bragging about themselves, and every rep should be taking advantage of it.
Who doesn't want to brag about themselves and then hear somebody recognize that?
Right? I want someone to do it to me. I feel like I haven't gotten a personalized message in forever, to be honest.
Yeah, well, we just heard in the, well, I was going to say, but also Credence in the chat. She's, I hear you're XYZ at XYZ company. It's like, okay, thanks for telling me what my own title is. I already know that.
Our VP of strategy got one the other day and said, rumor has it that you're the VP of strategy. Rumor? It's on LinkedIn. It's not a rumor. What the hell?
Jessica's highlighted the worst one, which is like,
The worst.
hey, Miranda, I see we have 37 connections in common. Let's have a conversation. It's like, what does that even mean? What's the relevance?
Or even the college one. The college one always gets me. It's like, oh, I saw you went to this school. Like, go Rams. I'm like, oh my god, like that's so far. Like, I'm way past that. Use something a little bit closer to what I'm doing right now.
I will say, can we make? Oh yeah, go Jeff. Yeah, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Okay, Jeff's learning how to use his Yeti mic. Okay. Anyways, yeah, no, we can all agree that personalization is so important to being able to prospect effectively, right? But it's how do we do it? So how do we do it fast? Because I have students in my course that go through and they're like, I can't get the personalization right. 45 minutes on a prospect, whatever. There's ways to do it where what I recommend is looking at, I'm going to go back to the keywords concept. Okay, think of the keywords and the triggers that you're looking for to identify, is this the right person to speak to? Is this the right person to speak to now? Okay, and then what you want to do is look at their words. So look at key phrases that use their words to say something that's relevant to the pain points you solve. Okay, so this is a really quick way to do a lot of prospecting, a lot of pre-call research, is to just look for these keywords and then leverage that specific phrase in your message. And craft a templated message that allows you to input that keyword really easily. And now you can personalize 50 to 100 people in minutes, as opposed to taking hours to worry about where they went to school, what do they play rock band, and all those things. You can actually find things that are not only personal, but also relevant to what you do. So worst personalization I've ever had was a guy looked at my Twitter feed, and my Twitter thing said, I like hockey. Okay, I lived in Vancouver at the time. I'm not a Vancouver Canucks fan, but he inferred because I'm from Vancouver and I like hockey, he said, go Canucks, and then went right into his pitch. So there was no tie-in whatsoever. Hey, Daniel, you love hockey and go Canucks, about that thing I'm trying to sell you. So there is no connection there. You're wasting your time personalizing if there's no connection. So like the rock band thing, I bet you they had a really engaging message. I know Scott Leese posted something not too long ago about a great conversational email about surfing, because he had surf and sales. Like there's ways to tie in what people are saying about themselves into what you're selling, and it lands so much better.
Yeah, I think that I would never give this advice to, like, don't use this with your friends, but use who you're prospecting words against them. Like, that sounds so weird to say, like, please don't. Only with your prospects, use their own words against them, because it is going to take you a long way. Like, I know exactly what I wrote in my LinkedIn. I know exactly what's written, as I'm sure everyone else on this call does. If you're using those exact words, that's so powerful. And when I read it, I'm like, oh my goodness, like they really took the time, really put in exactly what I'm feeling and what I'm doing on a day-to-day back into an email and sent it right back to me.
I think Miranda makes such a good point too about the fact that she doesn't get personalized emails very often. And my old boss, Alyssa Merwin, who is now, she's at LinkedIn, one of the top 3 sales jobs at LinkedIn, posted a couple weeks ago and said that she, over the past 2 or 3 years, she's gotten 2, maybe 3 personalized outreaches. This is a person, Miranda, Alyssa, whoever that you'd kill to have a meeting with. Make the effort. I would say the other thing for us, and then anyone that's prospected on this call, make a commitment. Like we talk about how important this is, make a commitment to respond to the personalized outreach you get. If you see that someone has made an effort, just respond and say, job well done. I wish I could help you. It's not my territory. You know what? Let me reward you for the effort. This is who is. Don't say I sent you, but give them some help, right? Because that person has spent some time, maybe 45 minutes, hopefully not after Jeff's course. And they're trying to figure out how to personalize and stand out. So reward them and have them talk about that internally, right? For every sales leader out there who doesn't believe in personalization, help those reps that are making the effort advocate. This is how I'm booking meetings. This is how I'm getting responses. Our actions can change, right, and shape the way that sales continues to evolve.
Mm-hmm. And to go off of that, just one quick question before I let everybody go that kind of a lot of people have been asking. When it comes to the personalization aspect, what are your guys' thoughts on video and audio aspect to the messaging?
All for it.
Love it.
Thumbs up
So
everywhere.
great.
Yeah. To Daniel's point, he gets one a month or once every 2 months. I never get them. And when I do, wow.
People get excited when they get them. I've seen so many prospects and decision makers get excited, like messaging me saying, "Dan, I got my first video message today," and they'll book the meeting, they'll book the demo. It makes you stand out. But as with any first time doing things, practice, learn. Like if you're recording a voice note, record some on your own first. If you're going to record a video, think about your background. You're like, there are some things to think about because there's been some real horror stories, but the opportunity is huge. Another great way to stand out. Mix that with personalized message. If you can send a personalized audio and video message, you'll be laughing.
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Start with the voice messages if you can't do video yet. I was so nervous to call boys when I was little, like in 7th grade or 8th grade. I would write down a script and then be like, "Hello, Sam, I would love to spend some time with you and go to a movie." Do the same thing. Write it down if you're on audio. No one will know, right? And especially if you're like us who are like animated, excited, whatever, it's so different to hear our voice versus all the written stuff.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I love it all. This has been fantastic, everybody. We are a minute over, so I do want to let everybody get back to their day. But it's definitely been the most exciting hour of my day and week so far, and probably for the rest of the week. So, guys, thank you so much for taking the time today to bless us with your knowledge and experience and insights. Sam, Miranda, Daniel, and Jeff, you guys are so awesome. Everybody, if you have any questions that we didn't get to, I know there's quite a few. I'm sorry we couldn't loop it all in. We had a lot that we wanted to get through. Go follow the 4 of these guys on LinkedIn. I'm sure if you have any questions, they'll be happy to answer them. But without further ado, I'll let you guys all go. Enjoy the rest of the week. Happy selling, happy LinkedIn prospecting. And again, thank you all so much for taking the time. And I cannot wait to do it again soon.